I am going to be reporting a crime tip to the Crime Stoppers of Oregon. I live right here in Portland, Oregon, and I am reporting crimes. I've been reporting these crimes all over the internet. I am a victim of an organized sting operation of which my wife and everybody on her side of the family joined into. My wife and daughters were sleeping around with a bunch of cops, and they were all having fun setting my ass up for crimes of which they all were committing, and they all were bragging at Eastport Walmart and Clackamas Walmart to Walmart employees about the crimes they were committing, and they were making it known to people. They were setting me up, and they were recruiting people to lie for them. And when I discovered what the hell they were doing and what they were up to, I tried to warn people about it, and they poisoned the hell out of me for trying to warn people. And then their buddies in law enforcement used their power of influence at the hospital to cover up the poisonings and to deny me emergency services. My doctor refused to help me. My doctor refused to write down the symptoms I was suffering. My doctor refused to take my information. My doctor refused to take a toxicology test. Literally complete, utter, and total denial of emergency services because of my wife and daughter's connections with their fuck buddies in law enforcement. My hospital visits to the hospital were covered up by the police and by the hospital. My 911 calls for emergency help were covered up by the Portland police and by the hospital. And while I was debilitated from being poisoned, my wife and her family and their buddies in authority were running around the neighborhood pedifying me. And my wife's lover, who was a Portland police officer named Eric Carlson, was acting as a double. And they were all having fun staging crimes and using Officer Eric Carlson as a double to set me up for their crimes. And they did this while I was debilitated. And once again, everybody at Eastport Walmart knew about this. This was open knowledge at Walmart. My wife and her sister and her daughters worked at Walmart. And it was what they were setting me up for and what they did to me. And when they poisoned me and everything, they bragged about everything that they did to Walmart employees. They bragged to Walmart employees about everything that they did. And I'm literally, they literally operate under the pretense of a sting operation. It's law enforcement that's the brainchild of it all. They're the ones that direct my wife and her relatives as to what to do and what to stage and when to poison me and what accusations to make about me behind my back and all this kind of shit. It was law enforcement that was directing them to do this. So they operate under the pretense of a sting, when in fact they're just organized criminals. Literally, the law enforcement and my wife and her family, they're organized murderers that are coached and directed by their buddies and their lovers in law enforcement. And everybody at Eastport Walmart in 2005 and 2006 knew about this. Now, my wife transferred from Eastport Walmart to Clackamas Walmart in mid-2006. So from 2006 to 2007, it was open knowledge at Clackamas Walmart. They recruited everybody into that store into their operations, if that's what you want to refer to it as. They refer to everything they do basically as a sting operation. So everything they do, they deem an operation. Well, they're organized criminals and they were committing crimes the entire fucking time. So I deem that organized crime. Excuse me, when law enforcement and their girlfriends are poisoning people and framing people, I don't deem that an operation. I deem that organized crime. Now, this is the official website where the Portland Police accepts crime tips. Now, the Portland Police do not take formal complaints and act on them. As a matter of fact, if I call 911 to report their crimes, what ends up happening is the Portland Police sends my wife's lover and his buddies to respond to my 911 call. And when they show up, they don't show up to take my complaint. They show up and make it known they're not here to help me, and they make it known they want me to give them all my evidence without taking my complaint, so that they can make all my evidence just go away. And that's what they did the last time I called 911. And I'll never call 911 ever fucking again. Portland Police and the Multnomah County Sheriffs frame people all the time. And they do it under the pretense of a sting operation. Everybody's familiar. That looks like they're blocking me. They're blocking me. There's supposed to be a form right here where I can report a crime tip. And it's not, the form isn't loading up. So the Portland Police, keep in mind the Crime Stoppers of Oregon, this is the Portland Police Department's, the Portland Police Bureau's official website for submitting online crime tips to the Portland Police. Now, they're blocking me from reporting a crime tip via their online form. There's supposed to be a form right here that loads. Here, I'll try refreshing the page and see if it... The page is refreshing right now. Nope. Highlight this and it says it says down on the lower left corner here, it says that it's not found. In other words, it's not loading up. So they have blacklisted me from being able to report a crime tip to Crime Stoppers of Oregon. They're literally blocking me. Let me, there, submit your tip online, right there. So this is, and it says click here. So if I click there, I just click there, and once again, nothing. I have no way to post a fucking crime tip to these people. Alright, I'll do it this way then. I'll just contact Crime Stoppers of Oregon this way and send them an email. And instead of being anonymous, I will just flat out tell them who I am. I don't give a damn. My complaints are not crime tips. My complaints are formal complaints. There. And I will just copy and paste my complaint. There. Now, I am providing a detailed list of crimes that occurred over a long, extended period of time. Like I said, I'm a victim of an organized sting operation of which my wife and her family joined into, and they were committing murders, they were committing poisonings, they were staging crimes and committing crimes, and they were using police officers as doubles, and they were using doubles in photogenic photos to frame me for crimes that these people were committing, and these people were committing murders. And I am posting links to admissible evidence backing up everything that I am saying on this complaint, signed confessions of the people involved, along with hospital documents of the hospital covering up the poisonings, and video evidence of these people in law enforcement, video evidence of relatives committing crimes and staging crimes and essentially non-stop gang stalking me. And I'm going to be submitting this to Crime Stoppers of Oregon. This is their contact page. This is not the page where you submit a crime tip anonymously. Of course, I have no intention of reporting these crimes anonymously. My complaints are formal complaints, which means I put my name to my complaints. Since Crime Stoppers of Oregon is blocking me from reporting a crime to them via their online tip website, since they're blocking me from doing that, I'm sending them an email with my complaint. And at the bottom of it, I'm even acknowledging who I am. And I have provided links to admissible evidence of crimes backing up my complaints. Now, I am a victim of a very large, corrupt sting operation. I'm not the only victim. I'm most certainly not the only victim. Essentially, the Portland Police and Multnomah County Sheriffs, they're a hell of a lot. They do things a hell of a lot like the KKK did back in the 1920s. They operate pretty much under the same principle. Just like the KKK in the 1920s, the Portland Police and the Multnomah County Sheriffs are organized. And they lie for one another, and they recruit people to lie for them, and they recruit people into their targeting of people. Well, they recruited my wife and her side of the family into their so-called operations in 1999 when my wife got a job at the Multnomah County Jail kitchen. Me and my family became targeted by these people, and they were setting me up as a pedophile back then, and they were using a double then. And my wife's buddies in law enforcement were renting several apartments surrounding mine, and those officers were directing my wife and her side of the family as to how to set me up. And they were also terrorizing my parents at the time. They were gang stalking my father, and they were terrorizing him, and my father and my mother were separated at that time, and law enforcement arranged to get a sting operative to move in with my mother, and the sting operative was poisoning my mother, and They were literally keeping her. They were keeping her debilitated by poisoning her, and my father was just at that time was being gang stalked by these sting operatives, and the whole time I was surrounded by these people, and they were constantly staging crimes near my home in my neighborhood. And just like any sting operation, law enforcement took full and complete control of the surrounding area for their operations. In other words, all the apartments surrounding my apartment, they took over. They used their police powers to evict the neighbors, the tenants, from the surrounding apartments, and they took control of those apartments. Now, they were setting me up for crimes that they were committing, and they were committing multiple crimes over a several-month period. They do this all the time because they always want to build a false history of complaints on their target. You know, law enforcement is organized. That means when you're targeted by a sting operation, that means there's at least several people involved at all times targeting an individual. And they take their time and they'll spend several months staging multiple crimes near their target's home in order to set their target up and give their target the blame. And my wife and her family were assisting them and being coached and directed by them the entire time. Now, what they didn't know was I uncovered this whole thing pretty much at the very beginning of it all and simply misjudged the size and severity of it. In other words, I knew I was being set up. I knew my wife's buddies in law enforcement took over the surrounding apartments surrounding mine. I knew what they were setting me up for. I knew my wife and everybody on her side of the family was helping them. Like I said, I uncovered everything right at the very beginning. And I made the immediate decision to hang in there to prove it. Everybody in the family was putting on this bullshit act in front of my face, pretending to be a loving family, while they set me up at the direction of their buddies in authority. And the entire time I made the decision, well, in order to prove this, I'm going to have to hang in there and put on a bullshit act myself and act like I don't know what the hell's going on. And basically let them set me up while I document the process. Well, I misjudged the size. I had the situation well pegged and misjudged the size and severity of it. I didn't realize that they were targeting other people, not just me. And I didn't realize that they had the blessings of pretty much everybody in the Portland Police and everybody in the Multnomah County Sheriffs. I was under the belief that it was just a few bad apples in law enforcement at the time. So, like I said, I had it well pegged, but misjudged the size and severity. I was under the belief that if I hung in there to prove it, I would be able to find help from good people in law enforcement. Big mistake on my part. Because law enforcement as a whole is corrupt, and when police and county sheriffs do these sting operations, they have the backing of everybody in law enforcement, and they work as a team to set people up. So when I found out what they were doing to my parents, I realized then that there was way more people involved in this than what I initially thought there was. And I misjudged the size and severity of it. And I was less gung-ho about hanging there to prove it and became much more concerned about people's safety. But suffice it to say that they weren't really hiding the fact that they were setting me up from me so much. They didn't really care. Nobody really cared. Nobody involved cared if I knew or suspected. As a matter of fact, my wife and her side of the family were constantly hinting at what was going on to my face, because they were actually having fun toying with me and hinting at everything. They treated police and county sheriffs and their civilian operatives treat framing people as though it's a sport. They treat it like it's a sport. And so they, and there at no time were they really trying to hide this fact from me, because they had no intention of giving me a trial. They were setting me up for crimes, and they had no intention of having a trial over any of it. They just wanted to make me look like a bad guy over crimes that they all were committing, and then they were just going to murder me off. And once again, like I said, I had the situation well pegged and just misjudged the size and severity of it. I didn't realize they were just going to set me up for a bunch of shit and then murder me. I was under the belief initially that they're going to set me up and there was going to be a trial. So I was hanging in there, keeping track of the process they were using to set me up with, and trying to keep track of their communications and to document their communications. I knew anytime my wife went shopping with any member of her side of the family, I knew that was code for them to meet with their buddies in law enforcement. And I knew that was provable. I knew that was documentable, and it was predictable. Because essentially, just by paying attention, that's how I uncovered everything in the first place. Because my wife and her side of the family were constantly talking about it. And I overheard them and pretty much uncovered everything by just paying attention and overhearing what they say. And when my wife's buddies in authority took over the apartment right next door to ours, they weren't even really trying to be secretive about it. They weren't really trying to put on a normal appearance of being normal tenants. They fascistly and in a big ass hurry slapped a 72-hour notice on our next door neighbor's door. And 3 days later, an hour after the old tenants moved out of that apartment, my wife's buddies in law enforcement fascistly, arrogantly took over that apartment and didn't even care if I knew the landlord never got to inspect that apartment, let alone clean it. So they took immediate possession, law enforcement took immediate possession of that apartment after they evicted the old tenants from that apartment. And they were not hiding that from me. And they know that I was paying very close attention to them when they took over that apartment. Because I stood out on the porch and had a couple cigarettes and watched them move their police equipment and their office equipment into that apartment, knowing they're in law enforcement, because I just watched an hour before this the old tenants driving away for the last time. So I knew damn well they were in law enforcement. Now I'm being blocked from reporting crime tips to Crime Stoppers of Oregon. I'm being blocked, but I am sending them a normal email and identifying who I am, and I am providing, reporting crimes and providing admissible evidence, links to admissible evidence, backing up and supporting my complaints. And now I'm going to send this. Failed to send your message. Please try later or contact administrator by another method. So you're there. You just witnessed that I have no way to report to these people. I'll try it again. There. Okay. That's correct. Okay, I'm going to try one more time. Send. Failed to send your message. Please try later. Contact the administrator by another method. So I cannot contact them by their email. And I cannot submit a tip. Now, submit your tip online. Click here. And once again, it fails to load. So I am completely, utterly, and totally blocked from reporting crime tips or contacting the official Crime Stoppers of Oregon, of which is the official site that the Portland Police Department here in Portland, Oregon uses to take crime tips. So they are preventing me from reporting these crimes to any local agencies. I am literally blocked from reporting crime. Like I said, my last 911 call was covered up by the Portland police because the Portland police sent my wife's lover and 3 of his buddies to respond to my 911 call. And I did not get help on that 911 call, and nobody took my complaint from my 911 call. So I am being literally blocked, from reporting their crimes.